The Galactic Compact Assembly Hall seated representatives from 217 species, and on the morning that Grand Executor Veilran of the Thrax Collective rose to speak, every one of them was paying attention. This was not always the case. The assembly had been in session for 11 days, working through a trade dispute that had been generating paperwork for 4 years and was expected to generate 4 more, and the attention levels in the chamber had been declining steadily since day 3 in the way that attention declines when the subject matter is important but the process is slow. Species shifted in their seats. Translators ran at low volume. Junior delegates checked their communications. When Veilran stood, the attention snapped back, not because he was beloved, because he was the kind of speaker who understood that the chamber's acoustics rewarded a certain kind of performance, and he had been performing in chambers like this one for 40 years, and he was very good at it. He spoke for 22 minutes. The subject was humanity's territorial expansion in the Kepler Reach, which the Thrax Collective claimed overlapped with development interests they had registered 18 months ago. The content was standard border dispute language, the kind that generated paperwork and eventual compromise. The delivery was not standard. The delivery was the performance of a being who had decided that this particular dispute was an opportunity for something larger than border negotiation. He talked about order. He talked about the established framework of galactic civilization, the centuries of patient construction that had produced the compact and its protections, and its carefully maintained hierarchy of standing. He talked about what it meant for a young species to expand aggressively into contested space without consultation, without deference, without the acknowledgement that the galaxy was older than they were and had been building its structures before their ancestors had learned to look up. He was building towards something. Every species in the chamber could feel it. The United Earth Government, he said, has demonstrated, through its actions in the Kepler Reach, and through a pattern of behavior that this chamber has documented across 17 separate incidents in the last 12 years, a fundamental disregard for the conventions that make galactic civilization possible. He paused. He was very good with pauses. There are those who suggest that humanity's youth excuses this disregard, that we should be patient with a species still learning its place. Another pause. I disagree. A species that cannot respect the order it has joined does not belong in it. He straightened. He looked directly at the Earth delegation's table. If humanity believes itself worthy of a seat at this table, if they genuinely claim galactic standing equal to civilizations that built this framework before their world had oxygen, perhaps they should demonstrate it. He let that settle across the chamber for exactly 2 seconds. The Thrax Collective formally challenges humanity's claim to galactic standing under Article 7 of the Compact Charter. Let them demonstrate what they are. The chamber reacted the way chambers react to political theater that has been well executed. Not with agreement, exactly, but with the heightened attention of 217 species, understanding that something significant had just happened and waiting to see what came next. What came next was Earth's ambassador, Sarah Walsh. She was 67 years old. She had white hair cut short and reading glasses pushed up on her forehead, and the unhurried manner of someone who had been doing this long enough to have stopped performing. She had been Earth's senior compact ambassador for 9 years. Before that, she had been a trade negotiator, a border arbitration specialist, and briefly, in a period she rarely discussed, a naval intelligence analyst during the Kethera conflicts. She looked at Veilran for exactly 4 seconds. The chamber was completely quiet. Then she said, "Thank you, Grand Executor, we accept." She sat back down, she picked up her coffee, she drank it. Veilran blinked. Around him, his delegation began the quiet, rapid conversation of people who had planned for several possible responses and had not planned for this one. In the gallery above, junior representatives of 40 species were exchanging looks that communicated variations of "did that just happen?" The assembly's presiding officer, a Sorlian named Drethkal who had been running compact sessions for 30 years, made a notation in the formal record with the particular careful penmanship of someone, ensuring that history had a clear account. Veilran recovered quickly because he was a political professional and recovery was a professional skill. He smiled. It was a confident smile, the smile of a man who had made a move in a long game and was pleased with how it had landed. He had no idea what he had just done. Threxall found him in the corridor outside the chamber, within 4 minutes of the session's recess. Threxall was Veilran's senior military intelligence commander. He was 43 years old, which was young for a position that usually went to beings with more years and fewer active synapses. He had the position because he was the most careful reader of enemy intelligence that the Thrax Collective's military had produced in a generation. He read files the way other beings read novels, for pleasure, for pattern, for the thing underneath the thing that the file was officially about. He had been reading Earth files for 6 months. He had been trying to get a meeting with Veilran for 4 of those months. He had filed 11 reports. 7 had been acknowledged. None had received a substantive response. He had watched the chamber session on the relay feed from his office. He had been out the door before Walsh finished her sentence. "Grand Executor," he said when he reached Veilran's side. He was slightly out of breath. "Commander." Veilran was in an excellent mood. Several of his allied delegates were around him, exchanging the satisfied energy of people who had watched something go well. "You saw the session." "I saw it." Threxall kept his voice level. "Sir, I need to brief you on Article 7, the full text, specifically the response provisions." "I know Article 7, Commander." "Sir, under Article 7, a formal challenge to galactic standing that is accepted by the challenged party initiates a mandatory response period. During this period, the challenged species has full right to." He pulled out his tablet. He read the exact language, because the exact language mattered and he needed Veilran to hear the exact language. "Demonstrate their standing through any means they deem appropriate, including military demonstration, within 30 standard days. The Compact's non-interference provisions apply during this period. No other member may restrict or obstruct the demonstration." Veilran absorbed this. They have 40 warships in this sector. The Thrax border fleet has 400 if they attempt a military demonstration. "Sir," Threxall held his voice steady. "They accepted immediately. Ambassador Walsh didn't consult anyone. She didn't request a recess. She didn't calm Earth Command. She accepted before you had finished the sentence." He looked at the Grand Executor. "Sir, she was waiting for this." A short silence. The Allied delegates around Veilran had gone slightly quieter. "You're suggesting," Veilran said slowly, "that the Earth ambassador anticipated a formal challenge." "I'm suggesting that she accepted a challenge that gave her species 30 days of compact-protected military demonstration rights without a single moment of hesitation." Threxall put the tablet away. "Sir, I have been trying to brief you on Earth's capability profile for 4 months. I have filed 11 reports. I need you to read them." Veilran looked at him for a moment. Then he looked back at his allied delegates, at the satisfied energy of the corridor, at the successful morning it had been. "File a summary," he said. "I'll read it this evening." Threxall watched him walk away. He stood in the corridor for a moment. Then he went back to his office and began updating every emergency protocol he had authority to update. He had been reading Earth files for 6 months. He knew what was coming. He did not know exactly what form it would take. He knew it was coming. Sarah Walsh filed the formal Article 7 acceptance documentation within the hour of the session's end. Her aide, a young man named Marco who had been with her for 2 years and had learned to read her moods with reasonable accuracy, watched her work through the filing with the focused efficiency she brought to things she had prepared for. "Ambassador," he said, when the filing was complete, "what are we going to do?" Walsh looked at him over her reading glasses. "We have 30 days and Article 7 protection from compact interference. She set the glasses down. What we're going to do is respond to a challenge the way challenges deserve to be responded to. She picked up her communicator. Get me Admiral Tors, and tell him to get me Captain Chen. The file on Zara Chen ran to 412 pages, if you included the classified appendices. The unclassified version ran to 91 and contained the kind of career summary that read cleanly on paper and told you almost nothing about what the person was actually like. The classified version was more useful. 12 years ago, command of the UES Horizon, a survey vessel that had been operating in the Vardani corridor when Keth forces had moved in without the navigational notification required under the Compact's survey protection provisions. What followed had been documented in 3 separate after-action reports, 2 Board of Inquiry proceedings, and 1 classified intelligence review that had never been formally released. The summary of all of it was this. The Horizon had been carrying 412 crew. It had encountered a Keth force of 23 vessels. Captain Zara Chen, then 32 years old and 14 months into her first command, had engaged for 6 hours and 22 minutes. She had extracted 31 survivors. The Board of Inquiry had cleared her on all counts. The intelligence had been wrong. Her tactical decisions had been correct given the information available, and the losses were attributable to the intelligence failure rather than her command. The Board of Inquiry's finding did not change the number. 381 people. 381 names that she had personally written in a private log that she kept and that no one else had ever read. After the Horizon, she had taken 18 months of ground assignment, not leave assignment. She had spent 18 months in Earth Fleet's Advanced Tactical Training Division, not as a student but as a subject. They had run simulations with her. They had given her impossible scenarios. They had been trying to understand what had happened in 6 hours and 22 minutes that had let 31 people come home instead of none. What they found was difficult to quantify but consistent across every simulation. She did not panic, not in any measurable sense, not in the way that people normally don't panic, which is to say that they panic internally and manage the external expression of it. She genuinely did not. Her decision cycle under extreme pressure was, according to the analysts who ran her numbers, faster than baseline at the exact moments when most commanders slowed down. She had been given command of the Nemesis 8 years ago. The Nemesis was not the most powerful ship in Earth Fleet. It was, according to people who knew how to read the right specifications, one of the most specifically capable. The difference between powerful and capable was the difference between a sledgehammer and a scalpel, and the situations the Nemesis was assigned to were situations that required a scalpel. She was 44 years old. She had commanded the Nemesis for 8 years. She had taken it into 11 situations that the pre-mission briefings classified as high risk and had brought it back from all 11. When Admiral Tor's secure call reached her, she was in the Nemesis's forward observation deck, which was where she went when she was thinking about something. She read the brief he sent before she took the call. She read it twice. Then she answered. Admiral Chen. Tors had a direct manner that she appreciated. He did not spend time on preamble. You've read the brief. Yes, sir. The Thrax Collective challenged us publicly in Compact session this morning. Walsh accepted. We have 30 days under Article 7. We need a response that demonstrates standing without starting a war and without looking like we needed a fleet to make the point. He paused. 1 ship. 1 ship is right, she said immediately. You agree? If we send a fleet, we're saying we needed a fleet. If we send 1 ship and 1 ship is enough, we're saying something else entirely. She looked at the stars through the observation deck viewport. What are the demonstration parameters? Article 7 doesn't specify. The challenging party defines the challenge. The challenged party defines the demonstration. Compact law says the demonstration must be completed within 30 days and must be observed by Compact-designated monitors. So we define what demonstration means. We define what demonstration means, Tors confirmed. Walsh's language, I thought you'd like it. I need coal in Akafur. Already assigned. Akafur is on her way up from Luna Station. Cole is already on the Nemesis. I called him before I called you because I knew you'd ask. She almost smiled, and Rourke volunteered before I could ask him. He sent me a message that said, I assume you're calling Chen. I assume Chen will ask for me. I'm packing. That was 40 minutes ago. She was quiet for a moment, looking at the stars. Sir, the Thrax border fleet. 400 ships. 400 ships. She said the number the way she said most numbers, not with alarm, not with bravado, just with the flat accuracy of someone filing a piece of information in the right place. Do we know their capability profile? Threx Sol, their intelligence commander, has been filing reports about us for 6 months. They have more on us than we'd like. He paused. We have more on them than they know. Send me everything. Already uploading. A pause. Chen, Walsh said to tell you something. What? She said she waited for this. Zara looked at the stars for a moment. So did we, she said. On day 3, Threx Sol brought Veilran the summary he had requested. He had spent 2 days compressing 4 months of analysis into a document that a busy political executive could read in 20 minutes and understand in 40. Veilran read it in his office on the compact station, in the comfortable chair he favored for reading with the morning's tea. He read it once. He set it down. One ship, he said. Yes, Grand Executor. Earth has dispatched 1 vessel. Threx Sol stood across the desk. He had been standing across desks and delivering information for 20 years, and he had a sense for when information was landing correctly and when it wasn't. This was a when it wasn't. Sir, I want to direct your attention to Section 4 of the summary, the specific ship they've sent. I've read it. The UES Nemesis, sir. I want to be clear about what this ship represents in Earth Fleet's operational history. Threx Sol kept his voice level. He had learned, over months of trying to brief Veilran on this subject, that raising his voice made things worse. This is not the ship they send when they want to show strength. This is the ship they send when the situation looks impossible. The Kethra border incident, 1 ship. The Selvari passage retrieval, 1 ship. The Vardani cleanup operation, 1 ship. He paused. Grand Executor, Earth Fleet has hundreds of vessels that could make a show of force at our border. They sent this one. That is a deliberate communication. Veilran looked at him. They've sent 1 ship against 400. Yes, sir. Because they believe 1 ship is sufficient. Yes, sir. Veilran was quiet for a moment. Then he said, they're wrong. Threx Sol looked at him for exactly as long as was professionally appropriate. Then he said, yes, Grand Executor, and went back to his station and updated his emergency protocols again and sent a quiet message to Junior Officer Kess, who was the most perceptive young officer in the command staff, telling him to make sure his personal evacuation documentation was current. Kess read the message and updated his documentation, and did not ask Threx Sol why, because Threx Sol's messages never needed explaining if you paid attention to the context. Day 12. The UES Nemesis crossed the outer marker of Thrax-claimed space at 900 station time, which was exactly when its filed Article 7 notification said it would cross the outer marker, because Zara Chen filed her notifications accurately and arrived when she said she would arrive. The Thrax border fleet was waiting. 400 warships in a formation that communicated military power with the directness of a physical fact. They were arranged in a layered arc that covered every approach vector to the inner Thrax systems, positioned with the professionalism of a military that had been doing this kind of thing for a long time and knew how it was supposed to look. They looked formidable. They were formidable. Against any conventional incoming threat, the formation was more than adequate. The Nemesis was not a conventional incoming threat, but the border fleet didn't know that yet. The Thrax border commander, a veteran officer named Gethnar, had been briefed on the Article 7 situation and had received orders from Veilrand's office. Observe, do not engage, permit the demonstration vessel access, report everything. The orders had the subtext that Veilrand's orders often had, which was that this was theater and the professional response to theater was to watch it professionally. Gethnar watched the Nemesis approach on his sensor display. One ship. Smaller than he had expected, actually. He had been looking at the hull dimensions and finding them underwhelming. He had seen the capability estimates in the intelligence brief. He had read them with the specific skepticism of a border fleet commander who had been in actual military situations and who had learned that intelligence estimates about enemy capability had a predictable tendency toward overstatement. He opened the standard hailing frequency. Unidentified vessel, you are approaching restricted Thrax collective territorial space under Article 7 notification. Confirm your identity and state your demonstration purpose. The response came back immediately. No delay for consultation. No diplomatic hedging. UES Nemesis Earth Fleet, Article 7 demonstration. A pause so brief it was barely a pause. Stand aside. Gethnar looked at his communications officer. His communications officer looked back at him with an expression that communicated awareness that the conversation had just gone somewhere slightly unexpected. Nemesis, you are one vessel. Our formation numbers. I know exactly how many ships you have, Commander. The voice on the channel was calm. Completely, genuinely calm, the kind that was not managed but actual. Stand aside. Gethnar sent the confirmation to Veilrand's office. One vessel, refusing negotiation, requesting passage. The response came back in 4 minutes. Let it through. The 400 Thrax warships opened a corridor through their formation. The Nemesis went through it the way a needle goes through fabric, not hurrying, not acknowledging the ships around it, following the corridor's center line with exact precision. On the Nemesis bridge, Cole came up from the marine deck and stood at the back of the room. Cap, he said. Sergeant Major. We're inside their formation. I know. He was quiet for a moment, looking at the sensor display, at 400 contacts arranged in a sphere around the single green dot that was them. Just checking, he said. Also, for the record, I want it noted that this plan is certifiably insane. Noted. Full documentation. Full documentation, Sergeant Major. Thank you. He looked at the display for another moment. What exactly are we doing in here? Demonstrating, Chen said. Right, he looked at the display. Carry on then. He went back to the marine deck. Akafer, at the communications station, watched this exchange with the focused attention of someone who was on her first real deployment and was calibrating her understanding of what real deployments were actually like. She had been calibrating since she arrived on the Nemesis 4 days ago. The calibration was ongoing. She was 26 years old and she had graduated at the top of her communications systems class at Earth Fleet Academy, and she had been specifically requested for this mission by name by Captain Chen, which she had been told in her assignment brief, and which she had spent 4 days trying to understand the reason for. She thought she was beginning to understand. Lieutenant Akafer, Chen said. Captain, begin passive scan, all frequencies, full spectrum. I want a complete capability profile on every ship in this formation within 2 hours. Passive only. Passive only. Chen looked at her display. We're not going to threaten them. We're going to know everything about them. Those are different things and I want them to understand the difference. Akafer began the scan. It was the most sophisticated passive sensor sweep she had ever run, pulling data from every frequency range the Nemesis's arrays covered, building a picture of 400 Thrax warships that was more detailed than anything their own intelligence files had previously captured. Weapon system geometries, power signature profiles, shield harmonics. the specific electromagnetic signature of each vessel's drive system, which told you more about its maneuverability than any hull specification. She built the picture. She sent it, per Chen's instruction, in a transmission burst back to Earth Fleet Command. And per Chen's additional instruction, she sent it on a frequency that the Thrax border fleet would detect and log. Not to threaten, to inform, to make certain that when the Thrax communication officers filed their reports, those reports would include: the Earth vessel conducted a complete passive capability analysis of our formation and transmitted the results on a frequency we could monitor. The passive scan took 97 minutes. When it was complete, HFY flagged it in the mission log and then sat at her station and waited for the next instruction. "Good," Chen said when the confirmation came through. "Now, the Border Defense Network." HFY looked up. "Captain." "Their Border Defense Coordination Network, the system that links the 400 ships in this formation to each other and to Thrax Command, the one that manages formation response protocols, engagement sequencing, communication encryption." Chen was looking at the forward viewport. "Access it." A pause. "Captain, their encryption is current generation Thrax military protocol. Breaking it would require—" "I didn't ask you to break it," Chen said. "I asked you to access it." HFY was quiet for a moment. Then she understood what Chen was telling her. Not break it, access it. The distinction was a technical one that a junior communications officer might miss, but that HFY, who had graduated top of her class and had been specifically selected for this mission, was expected to understand. She turned back to her station. She ran the access protocol that she had spent 3 days developing before the mission, working from the Thrax system architecture files in Earth Fleet's intelligence database, using a method that was not a brute force decryption, but something considerably more elegant. Something that found the door instead of breaking the wall. It took 11 minutes. The Border Defense Network's access log registered an external connection. Read-only. HFY pulled 3 documents: the current formation response protocol, the engagement sequencing parameters, the communication routing table, and then logged out cleanly. She flagged the access in the mission log. "Access complete, Captain. In and out. Documents retrieved." "What documents?" "Formation response protocol, engagement sequencing, communication routing." Chen was quiet for a moment. "Did we need those documents?" "No, Captain." "Do we already have that information from other sources?" "Yes, Captain, most of it." "So why did we access them?" HFY thought about this for exactly as long as it needed. "Because the access log will show that we could," she said. "Correct." Chen looked at the forward display. "The Thrax border fleet's communication officers are going to see the access log. They're going to report it to command. Veilran is going to ask Threxal how we got in. Threxal is going to tell him the truth, which is that it wasn't a vulnerability in their encryption." She paused. "Because it wasn't." "What was it?" "It was us," Chen said simply. "File it and move on." In the Thrax command station, the access notification arrived on Threxal's board 23 seconds after HFY logged out. He read it. He read it again. He picked up his communicator and called Veilran's operations center, which put him through to the Grand Executor's senior aide, who put him through to Veilran. "Their communications officer just accessed our border defense network," Threxal said. Silence on the channel. "How?" Veilran said. "I don't know, sir." Threxal looked at the access log on his board. The entry was clean. No error signatures, no brute force markers, no trail of failed attempts, just a connection, 3 document reads, a clean logout. "Our encryption is current generation, updated 6 weeks ago. There is no vulnerability in the protocol." He paused. "Sir, they didn't break our encryption." "Then how?" "They found something else." Threxal stared at the log entry. "Something we didn't know was there." He paused. Sir, I need you to authorize an immediate security review of our entire border network architecture. Yes, Veilran said. His voice had changed slightly. It had the quality of a voice carrying more weight than it was used to carrying. Yes, authorize it. And Threx saw. Sir, what else are they doing in there? Threxall pulled up the Nemesis's sensor profile. He looked at the passive scan data his own border fleet sensors had logged, the Nemesis running its analysis sweep. The transmission burst back to Earth. He looked at what the scan had captured, and what it meant that they could capture it passively with a single ship inside a 400-vessel formation. Watching us, he said. Everything, they're watching everything. He paused, and making sure we know they're watching. A silence. Keep monitoring, Veilran said. Report everything. The channel closed. Threxall sat at his station for a moment. He picked up his tablet and pulled up the file he had been building for 6 months, the Earth Capability Assessment that he had been trying to brief Veilran on since before any of this started. He opened the section on the UES Nemesis specifically. He read what he had written about the ship's history, about the 11 missions, about the captain. He read the section about Zara Chen for the 3rd time that day. On the Nemesis, Cole had the marine deck running drills. This was not unusual. Cole ran drills at every available opportunity because he believed, with the conviction of someone who had been doing this for 30 years, that the difference between a marine team that functioned and a marine team that was exceptional was the number of times they had done the same movement until it stopped being a movement and became a reflex. What was slightly unusual was that the drills today were configured for maximum sensor visibility. Not aggressive, completely within Article 7's demonstration provisions, completely within the legal parameters that the compact monitors aboard had confirmed before they left Earth. Just drills. Just Marines moving through combat preparation sequences in full kit at the kind of coordination and pace that the Nemesis's hull sensors would log, and that the Thrax border fleet's passive sensors would detect and read. Cole watched his team run the 3rd sequence and felt the specific satisfaction of watching something work the way it was supposed to work. His Marines were the best he had ever commanded, which was a statement he did not make lightly given that he had been commanding Marines for 28 years. They moved with the particular quality of people who had trained the same movements so many times that the movements were not things they did, but things they were. The Thrax passive sensor logs, which Akafer was monitoring from the bridge, were documenting every minute of it. Dr. James Rourke found Cole in the observation corridor, adjacent to the marine deck, watching through the transparent wall. "They're good," Rourke said. "They're the best," Cole said, without looking away from the deck. "You always say that." "I've always been right." He watched a sequence complete. "What do you need, Doctor?" "Nothing. I'm observing." Rourke leaned against the corridor wall with the ease of someone who had been on enough ships to have made himself at home on all of them. He was 48 years old and had the particular quality of men who had seen a great deal of difficult things and had processed them well enough that the difficult things were informative rather than defining. "What are we demonstrating, exactly? I've been reading the Article 7 provisions and they're vague." "That's the point," Cole said. "We define what demonstration means." "We define what demonstration means." He watched another sequence. 3 things. "We can see everything in this formation, every ship, every weapon, every weakness. We're sending the data home on a frequency they can monitor, so they know we can see everything. We can access their systems. Akafer was in their border network this morning. We logged out clean. The access log will tell them we were there but not how we got in, which is worse for them than if they knew." And he tilted his head toward the marine deck. "We can fight, if it comes to it. We can fight, and we are completely calm about the possibility, and we are running combat drills inside their 400-ship formation, because there is no version of this situation in which that is a problem for us." Rourke looked at the marine deck for a moment. "And that's the whole demonstration." That's the whole demonstration. Cole looked at the Marine team. We go where we want, we see what we want, we access what we want, and nobody has stopped us. 6 hours in and nobody has stopped us and nobody is going to stop us and we are completely unbothered. He was quiet for a moment. That's what galactic standing looks like. Rourke considered this. Veilran challenged us to demonstrate standing because he thought we couldn't. Veilran challenged us because it was good politics, Cole said. He thought we'd send a delegation and negotiate something and he'd get credit for making us negotiate. He looked at the Marine deck. Walsh was waiting for someone to give us Article 7 cover. 30 days, no compact interference, we get to define the demonstration. It's the best gift anyone's given us in 5 years. Rourke thought about this. She baited him. She waited, Cole said. There's a difference, though the practical effect is similar. At hour 6, Chen opened a channel to Veilran. Not to the Border Fleet Commander. Not to the Thrax Compact delegation. Directly to the Grand Executor, on his personal command channel at Thrax Command Station, which Akafer had pulled from the Border Defense Network's communication routing table when she had been logged in. The connection opened. Veilran appeared on Chen's screen. He was at his command station, which was a large, formal affair designed for a being who spent a great deal of time being observed. He looked like a being who was managing a situation and preferred that the managing not be visible. Behind him, just visible at the edge of the feed, Threxal stood at a secondary station. Kess was further back. Both of them were watching. Grand Executor, Chen said. Veilran looked at her. He was very good at appearing composed. He appeared composed. Captain, you have been in our space for 6 hours. Yes, she did not elaborate. You have conducted scans of our formation. Yes. Your communications officer accessed our border defense network. Yes. Your Marines are running combat drills. Standard preparation exercises, she said. Well within Article 7 parameters. The compact monitors confirmed it before we departed. Veilran was quiet for a moment. He was doing what very senior people do when a situation has moved past what they prepared for, recalculating, restructuring, finding the framing that still gave him something to work with. You have 1 ship, he said. Yes. We have 400. I know, she looked at him steadily. Grand Executor, you stood in the compact assembly and challenged humanity standing in front of 200 species. You called us unworthy. You said we should demonstrate what we are. She paused. I want to ask you 1 question. He said nothing. In the last 6 hours, inside your formation, with 400 of your warships around us, she kept her voice exactly where it had been, calm, direct, without heat. Has this ship been stopped? Silence. Has it been slowed down? Silence. Has anything we've done been prevented? A longer silence. Behind Veilran, Threxal was very still. Kess, at his post at the back of the room, was watching with the fixed attention of someone who understood that he was watching something that he would describe for the rest of his life to anyone who asked. Grand Executor, Chen said, we have been in your space for 6 hours. We go where we want, we see what we want, we access what we want. Your border fleet has watched every moment of it and has not been able to change any of it. She let that settle. That is our demonstration. 1 ship, 6 hours, 400 of yours. Another pause. Congratulations, Grand Executor. You challenged humanity. Now you know what that means. She closed the channel. The Nemesis bridge was quiet for a moment. Akafer at communications was looking at her board with focused attention. She did not look up. Rourke, who had come up from below and was standing at the back of the bridge, was looking at the forward viewport. Chen looked at the mission clock. 6 hours and 14 minutes inside the formation. She looked at the compact monitors recording indicator, active throughout, logging everything for the formal record. Navigation, she said, plot our exit course, same entry vector reversed. Same speed, Captain, her navigator asked. Same speed, Chen said. Let them watch us leave the same way we came in. Akafar looked up from her board. She was not quite smiling. She was doing the thing that people do when they are too professionally disciplined to smile, but are doing it internally. Aye, Captain, the navigator said. The Nemesis turned on its axis with the calm precision of a ship that had nothing to prove about its maneuverability, oriented toward the exit corridor, and moved. 400 Thrax warships watched it go. Cole appeared in the bridge doorway as the Nemesis cleared the outer edge of the formation. So he said, "We're done." "We're done, Sergeant Major." He looked at the sensor display, at the 400 contacts now behind them, receding. "We spent 6 hours inside a formation of 400 warships," he said, in the tone of someone narrating events to make sure they were real, "and nobody shot at us." Nobody shot at us. He thought about this for a moment. Can I put this on my record as a combat mission? No. What about a tactical demonstration? That's what it was. Can I put it as a very tense social visit? Get off my bridge, Sergeant Major. Getting off your bridge, Captain. He turned to go, he stopped, he turned back. Cap. She looked at him. For the record, he said, I've been doing this for 30 years. That, he gestured generally at the sensor display, at the shrinking contacts, at what the last 6 hours had been. That was something. She looked at him for a moment. Thank you, Sergeant Major. He went. She looked at the forward viewport. Stars and the dark, and behind them the 400 Thrax ships still watching. She thought about 381 names. She thought about them the way she thought about them every time she walked into something that looked impossible from the outside, not as weight, not as the thing that she could never put down, but as fuel, as the reason the impossible never looked impossible to her anymore, because she had stood in an actual impossible situation and had come out the other side of it carrying 31 people, and everything since had been calibrated against that. She had gotten better. She had made the ship better. She had made every crew she had commanded since better, because she had learned, in 6 hours and 22 minutes 12 years ago, exactly what the space between possible and impossible actually looked like, and exactly how much room there was to work in it. Today was not impossible. Today was not even close. She reached into her uniform pocket. She took out a small notebook which was old and worn at the spine, and she opened it to the last page with writing on it. 381 names, written in her handwriting, small and precise, every letter the same size. She looked at them for a moment, then she looked at the viewport. You see this, she said quietly to nobody in particular, or perhaps to all of them at once. Akafar appeared at her shoulder with a data tablet. Captain, formal withdrawal confirmation just came through from the Compact Registry. Grand Executor Vailran has filed Article 7 withdrawal documentation. She held out the tablet. It's official. Chen took the tablet. She read the document. It was brief and formal and used the specific language of Article 7's withdrawal provisions, which required the challenging party to acknowledge that the demonstration had been received and to formally withdraw the challenge. It had Vailran's authentication code and the timestamp of 3 hours ago, which meant he had filed it before the Nemesis had even exited the formation. She read it once, she held it for a moment, she handed it back. Good, she said. Akafar waited to see if there was more. There wasn't. She went back to her station. Chen put the notebook away. She straightened. She looked at the stars. Navigation, she said, take us home. In the Thrax command station, Vailran sat in his office after the channel had closed and did not speak for a while. Thrax Sal had come in without being called, which was something he had learned to do in the months of trying to get briefings through official channels and finding the official channels insufficient. He stood at a respectful distance. He waited. Eventually, Vailran said, How long have they been capable of this? The network access methodology based on what our security review is finding. It's not a vulnerability we can patch. It's a fundamentally different approach to communication architecture. Threxall kept his voice level. Our best estimate is 7 years of development minimum, possibly longer. He paused. The scan capability is older. The marine coordination you saw in the drill footage, that's a decade at least. Another pause. Sir, the capability we saw today is not new. None of it is new. They've had it for years. Valeran looked at the closed communication screen, at the space where Chen's face had been. They've had this for years, and this is the first time they've used it. Yes, sir. Why? Threxall thought about the answer that was accurate rather than the answer that was comfortable. Because they didn't need to, he said, until we gave them Article 7 cover and 30 days of compact-protected demonstration rights. He paused. Sir, Ambassador Walsh accepted the challenge before you finished the sentence. She had been waiting for someone to give her exactly what you gave her. Valeran was quiet for a long moment. The captain, he said. Chen, you mentioned her record. Yes, sir. 12 years ago, she lost 381 crew in an ambush. She got 31 out. She fought for 6 hours outnumbered before extraction. Threxall paused. She has commanded the Nemesis for 8 years. Every mission it has been sent on has been a mission that looked impossible from the outside. He looked at the Grand Executor. Sir, Earth Fleet chose this specific ship and this specific captain for this demonstration. They sent their impossible situations commander. They sent the ship they send when the situation looks like it can't be won. He paused once more. And from inside our 400-ship formation, running scans on our vessels, accessing our networks, drilling her marines, that captain looked completely calm. Because for her it wasn't impossible, Valeran said slowly. For her it was Tuesday, Threxall said. Valeran looked at the viewport, at his command station, at the compact relay display showing the formal withdrawal documentation he had already signed and transmitted, at the 400 ships that had watched one ship spend 6 hours doing exactly what it wanted and had not been able to change any of it. What do we do now? He said. Threxall had been waiting for this question for 4 months. He answered it the way he had planned to answer it if it ever arrived. We withdraw the challenge, formally, through the compact. We establish a direct diplomatic channel with Earth, which we should have had before any of this. We review our territorial expansion protocols in the Kepler Reach and find a version of the border arrangement that doesn't require either side to demonstrate anything. He paused. And we never do this again. Valeran looked at him for a long moment. You've been trying to tell me this for 4 months. Yes, sir. I didn't read the reports. No, sir. Another long silence. File a new report, Valeran said finally. Everything. Everything we observed today, everything our security review is finding, everything you've been trying to tell me for 4 months. Complete and unredacted. He paused. I'll read it. Threxall said, yes, sir, and went back to his station and began the report, which was going to be very long and which he was going to write very carefully, because it was going to matter for a very long time. In the back of the room, Kess had been there for all of it. He was 24 years old and on his 3rd posting, and he had been taking careful mental notes for 3 hours, in the way that young people take notes when they understand, without quite being able to say why yet, that they are witnessing something they will need to describe clearly for the rest of their lives. He did not know yet that he would write a book. He was already thinking about how the first chapter would begin. The compact assembly convened 3 days later for the formal withdrawal session, which was required by Article 7, and which required the challenging party to present the withdrawal in person before the full chamber. 217 species attended. This was not the usual attendance for administrative sessions. This was full attendance, the kind that happened for things that mattered. Valeran stood at the podium. He was composed. He had the bearing of a being who understood that dignified exits were a skill, and who had spent the days since the Nemesis's demonstration making sure he had enough of the skill to manage this moment. He read the withdrawal document in the formal language it required. He acknowledged that the challenge had been accepted, that the demonstration period had been completed, that the demonstration had been observed by designated compact monitors and logged in the formal record, and that the Thrax Collective formally withdrew its challenge to humanity's galactic standing. He sat down. Sarah Walsh stood. She was at the Earth delegation's table, in the same seat she had been in when this started, with the same reading glasses on her forehead and the same coffee that she had apparently not stopped drinking in 3 weeks. "The United Earth government accepts the withdrawal of the Thrax Collective's challenge," she said. "We consider the matter resolved." She sat back down. She did not say anything else. She did not need to. The chamber was quiet in the specific way it goes quiet when something has finished, and the full weight of what it was is settling into the room. In the gallery above, Kess watched Walsh pour more coffee from a small thermos she produced from under the table. He watched her drink it with the complete satisfaction of someone whose morning was going exactly the way she had expected. He thought about a challenge accepted in 4 words before the challenging party had finished speaking. He thought about a ship that had spent 6 hours inside 400 warships doing whatever it wanted. He thought about a captain who had been asked if she was stopped and had not needed to answer because the question answered itself. He was already writing the first line. The Thrax Collective's formal challenge to humanity's galactic standing lasted 29 days, 14 hours and 7 minutes. It was the last formal challenge any species brought against humanity in the Galactic Compact for the next 200 years. Not because the rules changed. The rules were the same. Article 7 remained in the Charter, available to any member species that wanted to invoke it, a mechanism designed for exactly this kind of dispute. The mechanism remained. Nobody used it, not against humanity, not once in 200 years. The reason was not fear, exactly. Fear implies the thing you're afraid of is something you can imagine. What the species of the Compact had watched in those 29 days was something slightly different from something imaginable. It was the demonstration of a gap between what they had assumed and what was true, and the gap was large enough that the imagination had trouble with its edges. One ship, inside 400 warships, for 6 hours, going where it wanted, seeing what it wanted, accessing what it wanted, leaving the same way it came in, unhurried, unbothered, completely alone. The Compact Monitor's formal report on the demonstration was 37 pages long. It documented every scan, every access event, every drill sequence, every minute of the Nemesis's 6 hours inside the formation. It was thorough and technical and accurate. It was read by the intelligence community of every Compact member species. Threxal's capability assessment, which Veilran had finally authorized as a formal Compact distribution document, was read by every military command in the galaxy within 60 days of its release. The key finding was 2 sentences, near the end of its conclusion section, that were quoted more often than anything else in the document. The demonstration was not a show of force. It was a demonstration of the difference between a species that possesses capability and a species that has learned when not to use it, and what it means when they finally decide to. Zara Chen received a commendation for the mission. She read it in her quarters on the Nemesis, added it to the file where she kept commendations, and went back to the bridge, because there was always a next thing. She still carried the notebook. She would carry it for the rest of her career and after. 381 names written small and precise. Not weight, fuel. The reason the impossible never looked impossible. The reason 6 hours inside 400 warships had looked, from where she was sitting, like a Tuesday. Sarah Walsh retired from the Compact ambassador position 4 years later. At her retirement reception, she was asked, for perhaps the 100th time, What had been going through her mind when she accepted the challenge before Veilran had finished the sentence? She thought about it, she picked up her coffee, she drank some of it. "Nothing particularly," she said. "I had been waiting for that moment for 3 years. When it arrived, I recognized it." She set the coffee down. Article 7 is a mechanism that almost never gets invoked because most species understand that invoking it gives the challenged party 30 days of compact protected demonstration rights. It is a gift to whoever accepts the challenge, if whoever accepts the challenge knows what they have. She shrugged slightly. "I knew what we had. The moment he said the words, I accepted them, because the moment he said the words, we had 30 days to show 200 species exactly what we are without anyone being able to interfere." She looked at the person who had asked the question. "The challenge was the best thing he could have done for us. I'm almost grateful." The challenge had been the best thing Veilran could have done for them. This was something the galaxy gradually came to understand, in the years after, in the way that things are understood gradually. Not all at once, not dramatically, but in the quiet accumulation of inference and documentation, and the careful reading of Threxall's report. What the galaxy came to understand was this. Humanity had been in the compact for 40 years. In those 40 years it had been patient, cooperative, occasionally brilliant in the specific ways that young civilizations are brilliant when they bring new eyes to old problems. It had also, very quietly, in facilities that were not on any public record and in programs that were not in any open budget, been building something. Not a fleet, not a weapon, a capability. The kind that is invisible until someone gives you the right angle to see it from, and then is suddenly, completely visible, and you understand that it has been there the whole time. One ship, that was the angle. One ship that went where it wanted inside 400 warships. One communications officer who accessed a current generation, encrypted military network, and left a clean log entry. One Marine team that ran drills with a precision that the sensor recordings documented and that analysts studied for years afterward. One captain who asked if she had been stopped and did not need to wait for the answer. The challenge had given them the angle. Veilran had given them the demonstration. Walsh had known exactly what she was accepting, and the galaxy, reading the compact monitor's report and Threxall's assessment and the quiet absence of any subsequent challenge in 200 years, understood what she had known. Congratulations. You challenged humanity. You gave them 30 days and a protected stage, and the specific invitation to show 200 species exactly what they were without any interference. And they did. This is what that means.